Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new build video with me, Sherman. Today guys, I bring you something completely new, completely different than what I've ever done in the past. I bring you the Shield Sayer. This is a stamina DPS sword and board build, guys. Somebody asked me a long time ago, hey, is it possible to make a sword and shield DPS build? Yes it is, and this is how. Redguard Nightblade. Really powerful, really good, and can actually pull it off quite well. As you can see, we have an 18k health, 29k stamina with a 1481 stamina recovery. Our weapon damage is coming in at 2,973, but when fully buffed, we can actually get a lot higher. We actually go up to almost 5k weapon damage. I know, sounds crazy. It's like 4,000 something. 4,000 weapon damage is what we can go up to with and then if you actually have somebody that's using Olorums in the group, or even powerful assault, you can actually get to almost 4,500. So that's really good. We have a 57% weapon critical. We do have a decent spell and physical resist, but that's not what we're worried about. We do have the Thief Mundus Stone, and this is what our crit looks like all the time. 57%. We are using Dubious Cameron Throne. There is another food that gives you more health and more stam and max health, or stam recovery and health recovery, which is really good for this build, but we're going to go with this for now because it works out really well. You really will see how much this helps having that high stam recovery. So let's go ahead and take a look at the gear. We are using power pots. These give you the stamina return, they give you stamina recovery, they give you major brutality and major savagery. So this is really good for this build. We are using the Dubious Cameron Throne, like I said. Going on to the build itself, we are running Krogs with this, mainly for the test, because it gives us a little bit more physical pin. If you're playing this build, I would suggest using Veladrith. It's a really good one for this, and it's really powerful for this build for some reason. We are using all Divine's gear. We are using Tri-Stats on the big pieces, but let's get on to the next set because we are using Blood Drinker. Blood Drinker, an amazing set for this build because you're going, wait, you don't have any bleeds. I do have a bleed, but we'll get to that. So this increases our critical by 2 and on the 2 and 4 piece, and it also gives us weapon damage on the 3 piece. But the 5 piece, when you deal or increase the damage you deal with bleeds, and damage over time effects by 20%, or bleed damage over time effect by 20%. So, where are we getting our bleed? That's from our other set that we're running, which is the Savage Werewolf. Now, this does give us some stam recovery, not an extra crit like we would like. That's why we have to run the Thief Stone. If we didn't have to run the Thief Stone, and we had a set that gave us more crit, that would be nice. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Now, this set is boosted by the Blood Drinker. If I take Blood Drinker off, you'll see that this actually drops to 1320. So with Blood Drinker, this goes up to 1520. And this damage is over 2 seconds for 6 seconds. So every 2 seconds, it's going to do bleed damage for 6 seconds. And it's going to be up pretty much all the time. Now this thing can do 1,000 something damage per second because of this. I know, sounds odd, right? But it can't crit. So, but it can still pull 1,000 damage. The reason I chose Krogs, though, is this, when you deal damage, you have a 10% chance to spawn Drua limbs that create shockwaves in front of you, dealing 1,664 physical damage every 0.4 seconds for 1.2 seconds. This effect can occur once every 3 seconds. This will be firing off almost non-stop, guys. It's crazy. So going over the traits, enchants, all that. So on the traits, we're using all Divines here. And like I said, we are using Tri-Stats on the big pieces. Even the shield down here, we are using Tri-Stats. On the smaller pieces, we are using Max Stam. So this is going to give us that higher stamina pool. You don't want to use Tri-Stats here. The only reason why I use Tri-Stats is because the health, your health is going to be extremely low if you go full stam. On a Redguard, you're going to have like 16k. This puts you at an 18k. And then when you have somebody running Ebon, you're going to be at 20k health. So this is really good. Now when they use Warhorn, you're going to go up even higher in health, but you're going to go to 32k stamina. So that's really good. Now, going over the jewelry, we are using 2 infused with weapon damage and 1 bloodthirsty with weapon damage. The reason for the bloodthirsty is because we want our damage to be boosted as much as we can. So this is going to really help that out. Moving on to the sword and shield, we are using an infused sword with a stamina, absorb stamina enchant. This is going to give us some resource return. It's going to do some decent damage. On top of that, we are using a shield with Tristats Divines, and we are using a bow with infused weapon damage. So this is going to give us that increased weapon damage that we need. And like I said, when you have Olorum in this thing, it's crazy how much damage you can get out of it. Now, I'm not using a Maelstrom bow on the back bar. I have done that, and it does improve the damage by about 1,000. So it's actually better to go with this. Because this is going to keep that bleed up, even when you're on the back bar. Because any light or heavy attacks rend the flesh. So it's really, really good. And this set is up non-stop, guys, because you're doing light and heavy attacks on both bars. So this set will be firing every 6 seconds, no matter what. You will the bleed effect from this is up all the time. All right, so that's the gear, food, all that. Let's move on to the skills. Starting with the class passives, make sure you get all the class passives, especially for this build. It works out so good when you have all the class passives. Moving on to the weapons, one-handed sword and shield, you want the passives, especially sword and board. This increases the weapon damage by 5%, so really good. We also get battlefield mobility, so if we need to block, we can move and still get 60% movement out of it. It's pretty good. Fortress is nice because this does reduce the cost of your stamina or your one-handed sword and shield abilities by 10%, but it also reduces your block cost by 36. So you can block with this. Bow, all the passives. Armor, make sure you get all these passives. You want the top 3 of the light, medium, you want all of them, and then the heavy armor, you want the top 3. Moving on to world skills, soul magic, definitely want those. You can be a vampire or a werewolf with this build, but honestly, I think it works out fine the way it is. Fighters Guild, you want all the passives because you are using Dawnbreaker. You want that 5% extra weapon damage plus that extra 3%. That gives you an 8% increase. We do use power pots, so we get 20% more. Like I said, the sword and shield might not look like it does a lot of damage because we only get 5% more damage, and we're not using dual wield, which gives us 6% in the offhand, but it does help out. We are using full medium armor, so we do get 12% or 15% more weapon damage, so that's really good, and we get the high crit here. Undaunted, you just want the Undaunted passives. Alliance skills, I mean, you're going to have Caltrops, so. Redguard, definitely the best for this, guys. I've tried other races, like Wood Elf is really good too. You just don't have as high a stamina pool, but you have better stam recovery, so you can actually lose some more on the stam recovery side. You don't need as much, so you can actually lose some, and you can actually put into other things to boost different stuff, like your dodge roll, stuff like that, in your CP. Alchemy, medicinal use, and provisioning, gourmand, and connoisseur. Now, this is a build I would suggest not using in trials if your group is like really iffy about it. In dungeons, it's great. I've tested this in dungeons. It works out really awesome. But let's go over the skills. Starting with the first skill, we do have Power Slam. I know, awkward. But if you block an attack and you use Power Slam again, you can get some major damage out of this. I block attacks out of habit, so when I do it with this, I automatically throw another Power Slam. Really good. Next up, we have Surprise Attack. We have this here because it gives us Major Fracture. It does a ton of damage, and it's nice. So, next we have Heroic Slash. This is here to do damage. It also gives us Ultimate, which is great because then we can drop our Dawnbreakers a lot more. We also have Killer's Blade. This is our Execute. This thing does a ton of damage when you're fully buffed up. And if you kill a target with it, you heal for 20% of the health. So, yeah. Next up, we have Razor Caltrops. We have this here for extra damage, of course, and damage over time. Next, Flawless Dawnbreaker. This thing does insane amounts of damage. We won't even get into it. On the back bar, we are running Rearming Trap because we want that minor force, and this will give us that minor force, and it really helps. boost our damage. So really good. Again, poison injection, we have this for a dot, and it is also like a minor simple execute. When you get the enemy below 50% health, the ticking damage deals up to 260% more. It's just really good. Next, we have Endless Hail. This does really good damage over time. And then we have Relentless Focus. Now, you want to keep this up all the time because this is going to give you minor berserk, increasing your damage done by 8% and increasing your stamina recovery by 10%. So you want this up non-stop. With your pots, the 20% from that, the major endurance, the minor endurance from this, you're going to have really high stam return with this. And then last but not least, we have Leeching Strikes. Any light or heavy attack we do returns stamina and health to us. And then fully charged heavy attacks restore twice the value. So you get 1,495 health. You get like 3k when it's heavy attack. Your stamina gives you 200 and something. So you will be doing quite a bit of heavy attacks with this build, but not crazy. Last but not least, we have Incapacitating Strikes. This is here mainly because it's a really good way to keep Major Defile on an enemy. If you're doing like a Dire Frost Keep or something like that, it's really super cheap ultimate. You'll have this pretty much in no time. So Dire Frost Keep, it's really good. But mainly we have it here because we want a skill on our back bar for our ultimate, and that's a really good one to have. You could also use the one wherever you kill an enemy. It gives you like 10 ultimate. It's the other morph, but it does magic damage. I just prefer this. Alright, so now that you guys have seen the skills, let's go to the CP and see how I have that set up, because I do have it set up a little different. We have 66 in an Ironclad. This reduces direct damage taken by 22%. We have 7 into Medium Armor Focus to give us a little bit more physical resist, and 6 into Spell Shield to give us a little bit more spell resist. That's how come our spell and physical resist are so high on the sword and board. When we swap bars, they're still pretty high. Let's go back in here. Moving on to the middle one, we do have 40 into Thick Skin. This is going to reduce damage taken from damage over time effects by 16%. We have 66 into Hardy, reducing damage taken from physical poison disease damage by 13%, and then 66 into Elemental Defender, reducing damage taken from Flame Frost, Shock, and Magic damage by 13%. It's really nice, because this and this gives us a 19% reduced damage. So, and then 19 into Quick Recovery. This increases our healing received by 5%. I could have put it, you know, the 19 plus these into Ironclad and other stuff, but I find this to be a really good setup for this build. It works out really well. Moving on, we have 56 into Warlord, reducing our break free cost by 20%, 23 into Sprinter, reducing our sprint cost by 14, and 23 into Bashing Focus, because we do bash with this build, reducing that bash cost by 14%. Over here, we have 43 into Mooncalf, increasing our stamina recovery by 10%. If you didn't know, Red Guards get 4% or 9% stamina recovery. Plus, you get 15% for being a Nightblade. It's a passive they have. So you actually get a lot of stamina recovery with this. And then we have 43 into Tenacity, increasing our stamina return by 10% from fully charged heavy attacks. We only get a 40% return, but it's still pretty nice. Moving on over here, we have 56 into Tumbling, reducing our dodge roll by 20%. 26 into Shadow Ward, reducing our block cost by 11%. We don't block. You don't hold block with this build. You block every once in a while, so it kind of helps out. More when you're soloing than when you're in with a group, but still works out pretty well. Moving on to the middle tree, we have 35 into Physical Weapon Expert. This increases our light and heavy attack damage by 20%. We do a lot of light attacks, and then pretty much quite a bit amount of heavy attacks, so this really helps. But we also get Butcher, so when the enemy's below 25% health, we also increase that damage again by 5%. So this and this is 25%, and it really helps. Master at Arms, 40 points, we get 16% increase to our direct damage done. I know what you're going to say, why don't you put more into this instead of this? Because this actually gives you more in your light and heavy attacks. I don't know why. Because like the combination of both, you actually get like 36% increase. So moving on, we have 56 into Mighty. This gives us 12% increase to physical poison disease damage. This also improves our light and heavy attacks. We have 56 into Thaumaturge, increasing our dot damage from our poison injection by 20%. It does a little bit for the bleed on the armor set, so really good. And then we have 66 into precise strikes, increasing our critical damage done by 22%. Really important. And then 17 points left over to put into piercing. This increases physical pin by 1642. Now, because of the way the build works, we're not using pierced armor, so we don't have a taunt, but we are using the major fracture from surprise attack. So we don't need a lot of more pin, because if you're in a group, a really good group, you're already going to have major fracture. But you're also going to have other things that are going to boost your damage. This build in a really good group, because I have done it with an Eben Alkosh tank, ran a dungeon with this build, and my DPS in that dungeon was 32,000. So I was doing good damage, more than enough to be good at doing that. Now, I know a lot of people are like, 32,000, that's really low. We got people doing 64. Those are elite players, okay? That's like the top 5%. That's not even half the community. Half the community could play this build and get away with it. So, alright. But I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a rotation. And then I'll go over here to the Skelly, and I will attempt to do the same rotation and keep it up, and show you guys how well this build can really do. I probably only do about 23k if I'm lucky. So, but to do the rotation, you want to start with this to buff up for your resistances. You want to use your Leeching Strikes first, then get your bow, your oh my god. You want Relentless Focus next, because when you do those light attacks, and you want that damage thing. So you want to make sure you do this first, and then this. Then you want to do Poison Injection, or Trap, Light Attack, Poison Injection, Light Attack, Endless Hail, Light Attack, Swap Bars, Power Slam, Light Attack, Heroic Slash, Light Attack, Caltrops, Light Attack, Swap Bars, do it all over again. Because usually when you get back to this side, this will have procced and you can do that. So it does a lot of damage. As you can see, I only did like 13k there. But we're going to let that one go ahead and wear out. And then we're going to go over here and fight this other one. And we're actually going to do the full thing with the pots, you name it. You want to have your pots up right off from the get-go. So, alright. Combat has ended. We're going to go ahead and buff up. Oops, I did that wrong. And always try to get a heavy attack in on that front bar. Usually I like to do it after my Caltrops. Dawnbreaker's up. I'm going to go ahead and drop that. Sorry guys, I'm trying to keep this concentrated. There's what my problem was. I wasn't doing my there we go. Now we got the rotation down. Okay, come on. Don't do this to me. I'm so bad at this right now. Alright, so 22,000 wasn't too bad. I made a lot of mistakes. Again, I'm not the greatest with this rotation. When you get the enemy below 25% health, you want to start using Killer Blade twice in the rotation. Instead of heavy attacking, you use Killer Blade twice. Usually by the end of the rotation, or by the end, you'll have almost no stamina, but you can still pull it off. It works out really well. But looking over this here, guys, you can see 4,107 weapon damage, 69% crit most of the time, 92% critical damage, which is insane. But going over this, you'll see that our Endless Hail didn't do too bad, Caltrops didn't do too bad, Poison Injection was insane, our Rearming Trap didn't do too bad, our Scourge did really good, Krogs was hitting like crazy. Like I said, your light attacks are coming in at 8k on max, minimum or average of 6. The Savage Werewolf, here we go. 1,760 max, 1,622 average, but it did 1,098 damage over time. This is what helps you boost that DPS as a set. Because you don't have any way of applying a bleed or a dot with a monster, or with Sword and Board. This gives you a way of doing a dot every 6 seconds. And if you look up here at the... Yes, I think it's here. Is it here? Or is it in debuffs? I think it's in debuffs. Yeah, Savage Werewolf, 98% uptime. That's crazy. Our Major Fracture was up 98%. Minor Maim, which we're not really worried about. But for a Sword and Board build, I didn't do too bad, I don't think. 22,000. And like I said, not at max penetration. Don't have Olorims giving me the extra weapon damage. I don't have certain things. But when I have all that, I can do... like 32k DPS. It's like 10k more. And if I do use the Maelstrom Bow, I can actually get up to 34k DPS, which is still within limits of being a DPS for trials. Well beyond, well into the limits. Average limit or baseline limit for trials is about 24k. High end, you're looking at about... 64, whatever, K, but there's only literally a handful of people who can do 64k DPS. But this was with a Sword and Shield. Not a lot of people have Sword and Shield builds out there, and by far, with all the class testing and everything, this one and DK are the best for a Sword and Board DPS. The Warden can kind of pull it off with some of their stuff. You have to tinker with a lot of things with them. The Templar can't do it. I wish they could, because I'd make one. No other classes have as many stamina skills as the Nightblade and the DK, so that's why they can pull it off so well. But that is the build. That is the Shield Sayer, guys. It is a really fun build. If you're looking for something out of the normal, you're looking for something different. I know a few people out there who've been waiting for something like this, so this is for you. But yeah, if you guys like the build, like button. If you guys want to see more builds by me or other things by me, you can hit that subscribe button. Also, just to let you know, next week I will be doing mostly gameplay videos. I'm going to hold off on releasing more builds. I do have a ton more to come, guys. But I'm thinking hopefully that they'll do a patch on PTS next week and we'll get back to the regular server stuff. To the American server stuff. And they'll have the patches in for all the stuff that's been done to the live servers on PTS. So that way everything's showing more properly. So, but yeah, really fun build. But yeah, other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.